On the edge, brains. How you doing? This is the spot, the place where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp. There she is. The responses are never dull. Today, we are down in Australia with Joanne Brindicat. Joanne is going to talk to us and teach us a little bit about Kundalini. I'm excited. I don't know a lot about Kundalini yoga. She has a trip to plan. She has a planned trip to study that. She's a hypnotherapist. Also, she works with individuals with past life regression. That always excites me, but it also frightens me because what was I? Who was I in my past life? But we all have soul contracts. And whether you believe it or not, we are energy. We never evaporate or dissipate, we only transform. So, what is it that I did not complete last time that I need to know this time that I need to prepare for the next time? She's going to talk to us about that and a whole lot more. How are you, Joe?
I'm so good, thank you. And I'm really excited to be here
I know
to share a bit of my story.
we've been going back and forth like a ping pong table.
We're together now, and that's the main
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely, absolutely. So tell my brains a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
So I live in a country town in Australia, and it's a really beautiful country town. And we have a really easy lifestyle. I have two beautiful teenage girls. Last year, I took the opportunity to accept a redundancy. So I walked away from the corporate world, which
Mm.
was a huge step for me. So I'd been studying life coaching for a little while, and I've got all these other qualifications like hypnotherapy, bereavement counseling, things like that. And I just honestly, I had this whisper, and it got stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where I felt like I honestly couldn't ignore it anymore.
Mhm.
So, and I thought, how am I going to get out of this job though and start my own business? Because that costs money, and it takes time. But working in the corporate world, having kids studying, having a bit of a life, it just felt impossible. So I went on a bit of a manifestation mission, which I often do. And I practiced something actually with Joe Dispenza every day. And one day I went to work, and mind you, I was feeling sick every time I went to work, whether I was working from home. I just had this nauseous feeling. I'd never felt like that before. I just knew I was so out of alignment and my soul was definitely not on mission. Yeah, so I went to work, actually physically went into the office that day, 9 o'clock, and there was a meeting and I was offered a redundancy package,
You know,
which
let me
was
let me
a
stop you
blessing.
just for let me just stop you there for a minute.
Yeah.
Brains, this is why I always tell you that you have to have a contingency plan. Your job is just that. It is a job. But you need to set yourself up for long-term success because
Mhm.
that's what happens. They didn't prepare you, but they had the board meetings. They didn't prepare you, but they worked out your package. And then you go in and you're presented with this pink slip. And some people, Joe is strong. Some people are completely devastated. They have not prepared for that long term, financially, emotionally. Sometimes they internally take that as, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Why me over this person? So I just wanted to interject that in there to let people know that it's not personal. It's business.
And can I also say to Brains that I think the way we need to see it is that it's a sign from the universe. Maybe we're not in the right job. We need to start something new. These things happen for a reason. That might seem like they come out of left field. And honestly, I felt even sicker than ever before when I became redundant because I'm
Wow.
like, oh my goodness, this is really realistic now. But
Mm.
everything that I'd been asking for, I was given on a silver platter.
Let me ask
So
you
it
a
was
question. What did you
taking that
do
leap of
in your
faith.
corporate career? What was your corporate job?
My last role was as a general manager of a really, really large disability company. We've got a big disability scheme in Australia, and so yeah, I worked for the fifth largest company that did this particular task in the disability sector.
So again, you were in a place of authority in two capacities. Not only were you managing the workforce, but you were also managing and responsible for the health care of others that were disabled. So you had a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, and a big responsibility was growing the business as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was a lot of responsibility, and it was a role that I enjoyed, but I wasn't on course, and I knew that. And there's only so much spirituality that you can bring into the corporate world every day. And all the learnings and my study and, the self-awareness and self-reflection, you can impart some of that. And I certainly did, I think, with my leadership team. But there is a limit. And I knew and I know that there's something so much bigger for me, bigger
Exactly.
role to play. Mm.
So you look in the mirror and you go, okay, introduce myself to redundancy. Here I am. I'm vulnerable. What am I going to do? Who am I? Again, like you said, you did the deep dive along the way. You prepared yourself emotionally, maybe spiritually, but then you got to look at financially and you want to start this business. What pushed you in the trajectory of coaching?
So there's two ways to answer that. So when I was manifesting, remember I said I was doing this Joe Dispenza manifestation every day, and I thought, how on earth is this going to happen? Right? I had no idea redundancy was going to happen. And then what was I actually going to do when I was coaching? So I had this very clear download, and it was very regular, not to worry, that I would be given the information from spirit. So I trusted that because I started actually getting more and more downloads. But taking a step back, I knew I wanted my own business. And because I've always been in this kind of field, like I started off as a social worker, April. Then I went into bereavement counseling and then a lot of leadership stuff and then the hypnotherapy and training. So I've always been on this trajectory. And it was really about what was I going to do? I always knew that all this study was going to come together for something bigger. I was going to impart it. I just didn't know how. And then one day I was introduced to life coaching. I'm like, oh my God, the training, the theology ministry, all my spiritual practice, it all can come together. And I can help people in any walk of life, whether they're interested in spirituality, religion, or whatever. I can just be there and I can hold that space with people.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's how it happened. It was really cool. But that voice, those downloads that I was getting, it helped me feel less afraid of going down
Now,
this trajectory.
and I kind of like to break it down into low level terms for people that are not familiar. I get downloads all the time, and I tell people, I had to ask the universe, could you slow those down? Could you
Yeah.
give me in bite sized pieces? Only because it is a very intricate puzzle. And like you said, you're going to get bits and bytes here. You're going to get messages here. You're going to get signs. You're going to get confirmation. You're going to get affirmation. You're going to get people. You're going to get processes. And what you have to do is be in alignment with self, that you're able to comfortably put these things together and create a mosaic, a beautiful
Mm.
masterpiece. It's a lot going on. And I was like all over the place. I felt like every time I got a download or I got a message or I saw a sign that I was supposed to act on it right away. I was supposed to, because that was the active monkey mind. That
Mm.
was the mind telling me, okay, react, react. You don't have to react. A lot of times you just got to sit back and process it. That's the most important thing, is how you absorb it. Now, there's a lot of things that I want to ask you. So I'm going to go back a little bit systematically. You said that you did grief counseling, but you also work in past life regression. How do those two intersect?
Yeah, it's my fascination, I think, with death. And I've always had that. I remember as a young girl lying in bed thinking, gee, there has to be more than this. It was pretty insightful as a young girl, I think, really, to think so deeply. But I thought, there has to be more. How could we live to 80, 90 if we're really lucky? And then that's it. It just made no sense to me. And then after doing social work, I thought, I've got a really big heart and I love to serve. And I thought, what's the worst thing that people go through on this earth? And I thought, it's when a loved one dies. Okay, that's what I want to do. I was in my 20s. It was a little bit crazy and probably naive. And I thought, that's what I want to learn. I want to help people that have just lost a loved one or that are grieving, that are loved ones passing. So I've always had this fascination. And then when I studied hypnotherapy, I've always been very interested in Dolores Cannon. I've read many of her books, about past life regression and all the many stories. So yeah, that is something that's always fascinated me because, how on earth, this is my personal opinion, how could we just live this one life?
Right, right, right,
Yeah,
right.
it just makes no sense. Yeah.
And then people that are really into physics, they understand that we're all energy. We're just housed in a meat suit.
We're pure consciousness, and we just continue like, yeah, this meat suit, we give it up one day, and that goes back to what you said in the beginning, when our soul contract is over, we give it up, but our soul continues and goes to the next life,
Yes. And
the next journey.
I have had a calling, and right before COVID, I was planning to go to New York. There is a retreat center there that deals specifically in past life regressions. I know that there is a message there for me. I
Wow.
don't know what it is, because to be totally transparent, this journey has been all right with me.
Yeah.
You
Great.
know, I haven't had any pitfalls just yet.
Yeah.
But I look at transition, and when my mother passed away, it was the most beautiful ceremony of transition that I had ever seen. Now, and I mean, me and my mother were peanut butter and jelly, but I gave her permission to go, and she gave me permission
Mm.
to stay. And I got to lay my chest and on her chest and feel her very last heartbeats. And I was
So
talking to her in the
beautiful.
kitchen a few minutes ago. That soul is, I mean, her presence is more impactful now than it was when she was in the physical form. You know,
Wow, that's so great. You can see that and
I
you
can see
feel
it, I can
that.
feel it, I can touch it, I call upon it. I
Yeah,
console with it.
fantastic.
So, brains, if you allow yourself, if you just allow yourself to reach down into it, no telling what you'll find. I had a guest on the show a couple days ago that told me something very fascinating. She says, again, we both agreed on the soul contract, but then you look at some people are here because of a murder. Some
Mm,
people are here because of financial indiscretions. Some people are here to be teachers. Some people are here to be healers. Some children die, before they're born. Some die at 15. There's mass murders. We don't know, but there is something in that contract that we signed up for that we need to complete. So
mm,
I say that to say this, that when people are in grief and in that transition, try to be big enough to accept some of those what ifs, and then you have great people like Joanne that is working to help you go through these stages. And those stages of grief are not going to be systematic. You're going to, be sad one day, negotiating one day, crying the next day, and agreeing. It doesn't go that way. It's ebbs and flows. Wouldn't you
mm.
agree?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the things, just to go back to the past life regression, one of the great things that can come out of, part of the healing is that often people let go of the fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
Once they tap in, to the past lives or even future life, then they realize that their soul is infinite and it's perhaps not so scary
No,
because there is no death,
no,
which is a really cool outcome.
it is. But I'll tell you a quick story. I tell this story all the time because it just is the best. I had Dr. Cornell West. I don't know if you know him. He's a very prominent African American professor here, social justice advocate. And he told me, he says, Sister April, when you're born, it's traumatic. You come through a portal of blood and slime in a place between urination and defecation. And you arrive, you're subjected to corporal punishment. Somebody slaps your bottom, thumps your foot, or sucks mucus out of your nose. But
Yeah.
then you have to realize 10, 15 minutes later, they've thrown you this fabulous party and all these white lights, and everybody's excited to see you and to nurture you and love you and teach you and feed you. But on the flip side of that, you've got to go through a transition again. And that's called
Mm.
death. Some are forced out, some are pushed out, some are kicked out. But as you go through that transition, there's another party. They're waiting for you.
Oh,
People
and
that you
so
haven't
many
seen.
people.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
many people you haven't seen, so many people that you want to meet, historical figures, so don't overthink it.
Mm.
And it's hard. There are testimonies. Some people have debilitating diseases, alcoholism, uh, they may have been shot or killed or whatever, but that is how they need to go through this portal, this thing called life. So
Mm.
now you are not only in the grief recovery space, and grief also could be a loss of a pet, a job, a relationship. So don't just think of it as death. It is the end of something, and you are grieving something.
Mm.
So now you say, okay, let me go deep. Let me go into this hypnotherapy. Let me put people in a trance. I think that's really cool. I have the gift of being able to take myself down. And we were talking
Right.
about that a little bit before. But you also incorporate yoga. Tell us a little bit about Kundalini yoga and your gift and your work with that.
So that's also a calling. So where I'm at, April, is I'm listening, which is really cool. So for the last 4 months, I've really started listening to things. And I've been practicing Kundalini yoga for a long time, probably half of my life. And I've always had this something in me where I want to go over to India and study to be a teacher, to impart the knowledge. And I do a really cool process with clients around big picture goals, like huge goals. Not just I want to have this great party next week. So, and one of my goals was the first thing I actually wrote down. I'm looking at it. Was to become a Kundalini yoga teacher.
Wow.
And there's magic in this process. And when you write down goals anyway, something happens.
Right.
So within 2 weeks of writing that goal down, I thought, what's stopping me from going? Now's a perfect time. So I'm going and I'm going to do the work within. I think it's perfect timing in my life where I'm at. And I can see that I am going to bring this back to my country town, to Australia. It's not really well known here in Australia for some reason, but it is such, this type of yoga is all about increasing our conscious awareness. It's a lot about the breath and connecting the breath, and it's a lot about mantra and chanting, and it's super powerful. There's real science behind the technique. So I want to learn more and more and be able to impart that and to help people with their healing and to connect with their physical bodies as well as their spiritual bodies. So I'm so excited about what that's going to bring, not just to me, but to other people that I can,
Well, you're going to
teach it
check back
to.
in with me because I am really into mudras. I am.
Yes.
That's what I'm studying, um, and also uh, my diet and my exercise. What are the things that I'm putting in this temple? I'm 61 years old. And I may not be able to reverse the hands of time, but I can definitely be gentle with the time that I have left
Hmm.
and nurture it. And yoga is a part of that. It is connecting with the breath. As we discussed, the breath is the very first gift that we receive, and it will be the very last. You always hear people say, and she took the
Hmm.
last breath.
Yeah.
What are you doing in between? How are you facilitating the gifts that you have? How are you being conscious? Everybody's into this word mindset. Mindset might get you stuck. You want to be conscious, you want to be aware of the present moment. You're doing that with women empowerment. You're taking all of this great skill set, all of these learnings, that pink slip, and
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
pouring it into other individuals. Tell us a little bit about your program and your coaching.
Yeah. So what I do is I help women unlock their soul purpose, really. and I meet them wherever they are. But what I'm about is to empower women around the infinite possibilities, and to really connect them in so that they can fully realize their own personal power. Because, we talk about, that there's so many lives that we're going to live, that our soul's going to go through. But what about this one? And I think, we're just so many people are just caught up in this matrix. And a lot of people often feel disempowered and not so much empowered, and don't realize that we are the creators here. We can create the life that we really want to live. So I
Exactly.
work a lot with the law of assumption. Neville Goddard wrote a lot about that. So, and that really involves work at practicing new thoughts and beliefs. But often we need to start from the very beginning, around people's personal values. Like, what do you actually stand for?
Right,
A lot of
right,
people
right.
don't even know what they call, and it's not um, it's just the way it is. But values help us make decisions through our lives. So
And
we need to
values
know.
also run parallel with judgments. And I say that, I don't say
Mm,
judgments in a negative way, but that's how you edit and filter. That's your life. That's been your experience up to a certain point. I mean, you've got an idea in your mind what India is going to look like, what this training is going to be like. But until
mm.
you're actually in that setting, you don't know what you don't know.
It's planting that seed,
Absolutely.
of for that self-discovery. And then it's all about being in that present moment, and letting life flow. Like you were talking about before, that it's hard sometimes to when we get lots of downloads. But what I do is when, and I get them too, so I can totally relate. But when we're living in flow, when we're practicing our yoga, living in our body, not outside of it with all of the stimulation that we can really get caught up in, then we can see the signs. And of course, not everything's a sign, but when we have the downloads, and it kind of helps us keep track and create that path for ourselves, which
Exactly.
is
Now,
really
you also
exciting.
work with, I wrote this down, four personal powers. Explain that.
So that was my first download, which is really cool. So remember I said that I'd be told, don't worry, we're going to give you the information that you need. So the first one is self-discovery. So that's when we go through people's values, through their legacy, their ideal day. So we're creating this kind of future for people. We actually get people to resign from a lot of the roles that they play and the masks that they wear. It's really powerful. We use NLP techniques for that, neuro-linguistic programming. And then we've got connection. So connection for me is actually one of my personal core values. So that's about learning more about emotional intelligence, self-awareness, the gift of being totally present with someone and having that heart connection. And then we go into possibilities. And that's where I really like people to think about, okay, what do you really want in this life? And I get them to do this goals process to think really big. So when they're 80, what do they have wanted to have achieved? And then it's self-mastery. So that's where we really go into practicing gratitude through different types of meditation and living in flow.
Well, I love that. I had to take some notes, Brains. Luckily for me, this is my interview, so I can go back and listen to it over and over again. But I agree with all of that: self discovery, connection, possibility. And the last one was
Discovery.
self
Oh,
discovery.
no, no, sorry, that's the first one, self-discovery, self-mastery. So that's when
Self.
we're mastering it all. Yeah. And while we're doing all that, what we do is I teach them some really powerful manifestation techniques, and where they can really tap into their own intuition. Because a huge part of my work is teaching women how to listen to their super consciousness, to the higher power. Because and I've done the same thing. I ignored a lot of stuff, and now that I'm listening, and this is where I like to be a role model and say, look, this is what I'm doing, and look at what's opening up to me now. The doors are opening and I'm living in flow. So I teach people some beautiful techniques called the boardroom technique, where they can actually bring in whoever they like. They can bring in Mother Teresa, Kuan Yin, and we have this. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's really cool. We're setting this your own personal boardroom
I
so
do,
you can get
I
all
do
these.
that, and I learned that from listening.
But no, I didn't get
But
it
no,
from a
it
book.
is Napoleon Hill.
Oh, yeah, yeah, Napoleon Hill. Yeah.
Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, amazing guy.
I have a boardroom. I have a whiteboard, and I take a photograph from the internet of people that I would like to consult,
Mhm.
that I would like to channel their energy. It works, brains. Don't be afraid.
'Cause
I
we're
have
tapping
a conversation
in.
just like my mom.
Yeah.
These people are life force energies, and they are willing and open to connect with you and share with you. And people say, oh, okay, well, I didn't, I'm hearing voices. No, you get a feeling. You start
Yeah.
to act differently. Your posture changes. My
Mm.
palate changed. I was channeling not totally channeling, but connecting with someone. And I said, you know what? Work with me on changing my taste buds. Help me remove sugars and certain things. Years ago, I was like, help me get rid of the desire. I wasn't a big smoker, but tobacco. Now I get anywhere within probably a mile of somebody smoking a cigarette, and it just creeps me out. You can change. The neuro linguistic programming is so powerful. It's the conversation that
Yeah.
you're having within your head. What are you saying to yourself? Are these gentle, kind terms, or are you aggressive? I hate myself. I don't like this, how I look. Or when someone pays you a compliment, you can't just receive the compliment. It's the little things. The
Mm.
little things.
And it's picking up on those thoughts, isn't it?
It's
Being
picking up
aware of
that
them.
it's being aware of them. Now, I'm not going to say that you're not going to have them.
Mm.
A gazillion thoughts every minute.
Yeah, it's part of the
What are
human
you how are
experience.
you going to process them? Is this really real? Is this a story that I've been telling myself for the last 15 years? I was sharing with my mentor a situation, and I was like, golly, I said, I don't want to face this again. I've been there before. And she says, well, why not? And I said, because I know what's going to happen. She says, no, you are replaying a story that was in your mind. Since you
Mm.
already know what happens last time, you have an opportunity to reframe it,
Yeah.
reshape it, and change it into something different. Take
Mhm.
that on my setback and thought about it and went in and killed it.
Yeah, great.
You can do these things. So let's ask some fun questions. This is my favorite part of the interview.
Okay.
I like to get to know people a little bit more intimately. You said you have two beautiful daughters.
Mhm.
What are you pouring into them?
Oh, the first thing that came up is love. Definitely love. That's I think that's a number one thing that we do as mothers. But I think one of the gifts that I can definitely impart on them is self-awareness. To be aware of the impact that they have on everyone that they come into contact with. And everything on this earth. I think that self-awareness is so important. And the incredible power of connection, connecting with people, connecting with animals, connecting with everything here. I think
That's
they're
my
the big
next question.
ones.
If you were an animal, what animal would you be and why?
Probably a bird.
Really?
I'd love to fly. That bird's eye view. Fly high in the sky. Yeah.
I'd be an elephant.
It's my favorite animal, an elephant.
One of my spirit animals. They're strong. They travel with
Yeah.
prides. They're good parents. They're vegetarians. They never forget.
Amazing
But
memories.
they are very powerful. They are very powerful. You can never underestimate. A
Mm.
friend of mine was a circus performer, and she left the circus, and we went. She invited me to go with her. Do you know that one of those elephants was in the performance and sniffed her out? Went, oh,
Really?
wait a minute. Went out and picked her up out of the audience and placed her on their back. As
My
God is my witness,
goodness.
I mean, my mouth didn't close for about 20 minutes. And
Wow.
her father retired that elephant and paid for it to be on a reserve.
Really?
It
That's
was,
so
I
beautiful.
get goose pimples when I think about it. I could not believe it. That animal picked her out of everybody that was there at the circus.
Wow.
So again, there's something to say about past life regression and memory.
Yeah, that's spectacular.
If you were an appliance in the kitchen, Joe, what appliance would you be?
Oh, a Thermomix, because I wanna do everything. I like to do everything.
A lot of people want to be a Thermomix. They a
Yeah, I know,
lot
I love my Thermomix.
or a blender. Absolutely. I think I'd be the refrigerator. I just want I
You
just want
just
to
wanna
chill
chill.
and cool it. Yeah. Or if something's not right, we can just freeze it and unthaw it at a later date. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
you had three magical wishes, absolutely anything, what would they be?
Anything, oh goodness, to bring peace on earth so that
Oh,
everyone could love each other. And I think that would solve everything, wouldn't it? If we could just dabble some peace and love, then it would change everything.
absolutely. You got two
Yeah.
more.
Well, definitely to stop poverty and starvation, but peace would rule that out.
Mhm.
And to heal Mother Earth, definitely, so that it can so that she can provide for us properly, because we're doing a really good job at damaging her. So
Absolutely.
even if there was peace, it's still going to be hard to reverse.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
Well, I have different aspirations. One, I'd like to time travel.
Oh, gee, yeah, cool.
Time travel, past, present, or future. The next one is I'd like to taste every flavor of gelato on the
That's
planet.
doable.
Everything, and I'd like to, which I know that I am. So one of those have come true. I want to be a conduit of information. I want to be a
Yeah,
channel. I
beautiful.
want to be a place for people to come through, get what they need, leave what they don't need, teach and help others. Because we only have two jobs on this planet, and one is to learn, the other one is to teach. We can't
Mm,
take this stuff with us.
mm.
We are energy, we are matter, and we do matter, and you matter. Thank you so much, Joe, for being a guest on The Edge with me. Please tell my brains how to get in contact with you, to work with you, to follow you on social media.
Yeah, so on Facebook, I'm Joanne Debrincat. My business Facebook page is Quantum Flow Coaching, and my website's www.quantumflowcoaching.com.
We're going to put all of her information
Easy.
in the show notes as well as at the back of the interview. Brains, reach out. Again, you could be grieving on any level, many levels. It could be the job, the relationship, your weight, your finances, a family member. You may have something that's nagging at you. There's something that's calling you to figure out who you were and who possibly you can morph into or aspire to be with past life regressions. Women empowerment. Be strong, women. We don't have to be marshmallows. Because if you do, somebody will put a stick in it, put you in the fire, and turn you into a s'more.
Be the creator of your own destiny. Yeah. And I
Absolutely.
also have a free meditation, April, that I run, a guided meditation once a month on the first Sunday of the month. So you can just jump on my Facebook page, the Joanne Debrincat one, and join. And if you're somewhere else across the world, there's a 30-day replay. So people are really welcome to come and do that.
Go and learn how to quiet the monkey mind.
Mm.
Really, and I'm telling you, when she completes this Kundalini yoga, she is going to be a force to deal with. And in that small town, it's not going to be small. It's going to be transformative. It's going to be huge, and you are going to be sought after all over the world. So thank you so much, Brains. Go in and do your due diligence. Love, like, share, and subscribe. Love, like, share, and subscribe. Rewind, listen to this interview, as well as the other 2,000 that are online. Thank you so much, Joanne. You are the best.
Thank you.
Bye, Brains.